Coming up today on LinkedIn News Live, the pandemic is causing a mass exodus out of cities, and more people are considering purchasing a home rather than renting. We speak to two CEOs who are disrupting the home buying process, from picking your dream house to financing it. That and our poll up next. Hello, I'm Caroline Fairchild, and welcome to LinkedIn News Live, where the business conversation begins with you. It's October 28th, and here's a quick look at the top stories that are trending right now on LinkedIn. The Dallas-Fort Worth area is seeing a surge of workers returning to their desks. That's according to Castle Systems. Some 43.3% of Dallas office employees have gone back to their workstations. That compares to just 27.4% of office workers in the top U.S. city markets. Less than 15% of New York City workers are back. And Reddit announced it will pay its employees the same regardless of their location. The pay will be based on a range of high-cost areas, such as San Francisco or New York. This bucks the trend of some tech companies like Facebook and Twitter, who now say they're going to adjust pay for employees who move based on the cost of living. And is it hard to raise startup funding in a pandemic? Not if you're in the pharma industry, according to a report out by Axios. Amid fears of a spike in coronavirus cases, COVID-19 related startup funding is seeing a surge. Gauss, a Silicon Valley computer vision company, raised $10 million recently to develop an at-home rapid antigen test for the virus. For more stories like these, be sure to check out the news module to the right of your LinkedIn feed, or if you're in mobile, click into that search box. We've been polling professionals on the LinkedIn news page, and we want to hear from you on today's topic as well, which is, would you buy a home that you've only seen online? A, yes, absolutely. B, no way. It depends. Comment below. Let us know your vote, and we'll have a conversation at the end of today's show. As the pandemic continues to require social distancing, as well as buying things online, e-commerce is booming. But what about your home? As we're discussing in today's poll, would you build, customize, and purchase your next home fully online? Well, if you did, it could cut the time it takes to move in by 50% to just 6 months. Joining us now is Alec Hartman, co-founder and CEO of Welcome Homes. Alec, welcome to LinkedIn News Live.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to talk to you. I'm fascinated by this topic. Are people really buying their homes completely online? Talk to us a little bit about Welcome Homes and how the model works.
Yeah, so, Welcome Homes is a response to a few different things, but most importantly, right, there isn't a product in the market for you to get a new home directly in a primary market, right? You have to go outside of it, you have to custom build, you have to buy a spec home. So, when we look at it, we look at how does someone get a new home today? It's really challenging. It's much more difficult than it was for previous generations. And, the access to new homes and financing it's really limited. So we can make a pretty big change. And that change really increases the quality of life for people, getting into a new home that's more usable. It's all a lot of benefit for people.
And who exactly is your customer, Alec? I'm very much old school in this regard. I didn't buy much online before this pandemic. I've now been forced to do so. Who is your customer, and who is buying these homes completely online?
Yeah, so it's really millennials who are migrating from major cities to primary suburbs, right? And that cycle and that trend has happened for years. It's not, the pandemic might have escalated it a little bit, but that people have young families, they cycle out of major cities into primary suburbs all the time. And those people have the fewest options right now. So they're best served by our product because they can really get online and see and feel and touch, online the way that their home is gonna look. And prior to this, like a new home, you just don't get that level of customization or granularity. You can't really see what you're getting. You have to choose from some swatches. There's no visualizations. So really, it's a product meant for those people who are cycling out of major cities who, have no other way to really get an understanding of what their new home's going to be like.
And of course, so many more people are doing that because of this pandemic. And like so many entrepreneurs, the reason you started this business is because you think that the real estate industry is just inherently broken. What's not working about it right now, and how is Welcome Homes fixing that?
Well, the real estate industry has so many parts, right? Like, and single family homes are the largest asset class in the world. So it makes sense that there would be so many parts involved. And I think, you can argue for efficiency being a major problem. You can argue for the process that people go through to buy a home being a major problem. But overall, I think when it comes to single family homes, which is what we're focused on, individuals don't really have the advantages that we have in creating value engineered designs. So their cost centers are significantly higher than what we can do by, applying architecture and value engineering to creating a really good home at a really reasonable price. So it's just that in the construction industry, really people don't have access to an affordable priced home because of how it's set up. And I think we can change that very dramatically.
I'm going to go ahead and say hello to some members who are joining us in the stream right now. Alec, Chris from Arizona, Larry from Florida, Dolores from Texas, Brad from California, and Linda from Denver. Thanks for joining us on LinkedIn News Live. Alec, let's dive deeper into costs right now. Your home starts about at an average of less than $1 million. Amid this pandemic, is that a price point that people can afford? And how does Welcome Homes bring the price down, as you're suggesting?
Yeah, so I mean, in a lot of ways, that price is really great for the areas that we're starting to serve first. So those major areas outside of New York City, where the average home price per square foot that we're talking about is significantly higher. So this represents an existing home price an existing home price for a new home. So it's really a value disruption here.
Absolutely. And nationwide, demand for new homes has outpaced supply in recent years. Is Welcome Homes alleviating some of the insufficiencies in the market? We're looking at home ownership rates right now. Is Welcome Homes making this market a little bit more in supply and demand?
Yeah, absolutely. By centralizing our models and doing the value engineering on our side, we're able to reduce the cycle and the timeline that comes with building a new home. So contractors and GCs have a much more expedient process for the actual delivery of homes. We're also internalizing any sort of change orders. So like the customer talks to us, we're your single point of contact. This is a really turnkey product. It's like going into a store and buying a home off a shelf. You're doing it online, right? This isn't a super involved process where you need to be watching over it day to day and your uncertain results. This is really more of a productized version of the home that you could be confident in. And at the end of the day, you're getting an awesome home, and we're going to make sure of that. And from the contractor perspective, it's just so much easier when we're managing the change orders, we're doing the construction management on our side, and we're taking on the responsibility and the guarantees. And that in turn makes it a lot easier for them to push out far more homes, in the same schedule that they're using now.
Confidence, I'm sure, is something that a lot of home buyers would like right now. I'm just starting these conversations with my husband, and it's so stressful. I actually read that 40% of Americans think that buying a home is the most stressful part of any decision that they've ever made. So it's great that Welcome Homes is trying to alleviate some of that stress. But Alec, I want to ask you about your funding. You have a little less than $5 million in seed funding right now. You're in the tri-state area. How are you thinking about expanding?
Yeah, so we raised a nice $5.35 million seed round, which is great. That really does help us catapult our first few designs. It helps us put a lot of energy into value engineering and building out our team. When we look at the geographic, areas we can best serve, we look to the customer segment, right? Like we're super customer centered, and we want to follow the migration patterns that we see out of major cities, and copy that into other major cities, and and be working in primary suburbs so that we're serving the same customer segment, and that we know really, really well how to make sure that we're meeting their need sets. I don't think that we're tooled up with only a few $1 million to be everything to everyone, but we could do a really, really good job of making sure that our customer segment that we're focusing on is really well served.
I want to talk to you about you for a second, Alec. You actually learned to code when you were a child. How has that changed the way that you thought about building Welcome Homes in your companies before this?
Man, learning to code actually changes everything about your business life, because you're thinking about it programmatically, and that's a really good asset that having a background in code helps you with. It helps you bucket things. It helps you be formulaic. It really bug checking, right? That helps you have a procedure for when you're dealing with a problem. So in my business life, having the background of being able to code is really, really helpful. So not only do I have visibility into what's possible and timelines and stuff on the development side, but it also really helps me organize things and to trouble check things and to validate hypotheses, in an efficient way.
I'm seeing some members joining us in the stream right now with some comments and questions. Sarah says, it just feels risky to buy without walking through. Sarah, I'm totally with you. What do you have to say to the Sarahs and the Carolines of the world who still feel like they have to feel and touch something before buying it?
Yeah, absolutely. First, we'll send out a sample packet so you can have a little bit of a feel and a touch. But what I'd say is, look, the entire industry of spec homes and custom homes have always been, you can't see anything before you buy, right? And so that industry has always been in existence. That problem has always happened. Doing it online is actually a giant step forwards because you can see a lot more. You have a lot more visibility into every aspect, every angle of the home. So, getting a new home is in itself very problematic because that touch feel just isn't there traditionally, right? There are a few exceptions, but mostly it's not there. This is the step forward because it actually puts it within reach, and you can get a sense of what your home is going to feel like. And we'll do better and better into making it photorealistic and even more visible, going forward as well.
All right, well, I'm seeing some more members joining us in the stream right now. Maybe they too want to buy a home. Stephanie from Ohio, Brett from New York, that's where Welcome Homes is, so maybe you can look into that. Charles from Hong Kong, I don't think that Welcome Homes is there yet. And Vivian from Florida, thanks for joining us on LinkedIn News Live. And Quintilla says, looking virtually has allowed me to look at homes that I couldn't have seen in person. Alec, thank you so much for joining us on LinkedIn News Live and for telling us more about the virtual home buying process.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Well, if you're going to buy a home, first you have to finance it. And that is a very complicated process that relies on technology that is in many ways antiquated and suffers from inequities that make it challenging for many to get a loan. Can AI change that? Joining us now to discuss is Affordit CEO Kevin O'Brien. Kevin, welcome to LinkedIn News Live. Oh, we're having a little bit of trouble with Kevin's audio. I'm not sure if he's on mute.
There you go. Sorry about that. Thank you for having me today.
It all happens on a work from home show. No problem, Kevin. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for joining us on LinkedIn News Live. And your background is in finance. And what brought you to this space is that you had trouble finding a mortgage. You with a finance background. What happened with that mortgage building process and how did it lead you to build Affordit?
Yeah, absolutely. So like any good idea that comes from a need, essentially. So my wife and I, we were trying to get approved for our first mortgage. We were newly married, had great credit scores. We kind of thought we fit all the boxes that you needed to get qualified. But unfortunately, because of some student loan debt from my undergrad and graduate school, we didn't fit inside that perfect box that Fannie Mae requires for you to be able to purchase a home. So I didn't really understand that. I was in corporate finance at the time. So what I did was I learned how the entire underwriting process works from start to finish on mortgages and consumer loans. And I created a proprietary algorithm that essentially optimized my wife and I's debt to income ratio and debt profile. And within 3 days after teaching myself how to code over a weekend, creating this algorithm, we had a working platform that was able to get us approved for that mortgage. And that's when I realized there was a big need for something like this in the marketplace.
And why aren't the underwriters doing it themselves? Don't they want to write more loans?
They do, right? And that's a great question. I actually asked that to quite a few underwriters. And one of the major reasons why they are not doing it themselves is because of time. So there's a lot of influx right now on refinances, new home purchases, and it's actually easier for them just to approve the easy loans where they don't have to try and work through any kind of metrics or calculations to get approvals for those individuals. And it's really crazy because about 1/3 of all mortgage applications are denied, and they're primarily denied due to debt to income ratio and other calculations that could be modified or optimized during the process, and they could get approved. So it's a massive opportunity that really no one was looking at the time.
Absolutely. And you mentioned student loans. I imagine that this is even a bigger problem amid this pandemic for first-time home buyers. And as we talked about at the top of the show, more and more people are looking to buy a home right now. How has the pandemic changed in terms of what your customers are looking for right now?
Yeah, so the pandemic has actually brought a lot of light to what we are doing, and we are signing more financial institutions to use our tool right now than ever before. And the reason why is their customer base, they're looking for solutions now because of loss of income, loss of jobs, unsure about what the future brings for them. So they're looking at how can they lower their monthly debt that they're paying on an annual basis. And our proprietary algorithm runs hundreds of thousands of iterations on their credit profile to figure out exactly what they can do to lower their monthly expenses. And we've seen a massive uptick in the past 6 months because of the pandemic.
You talk about the algorithm. I'm sure we have many members in the stream, as well as myself, who don't have a complete view of how AI works. How do you explain to investors, to customers, what exactly you're doing to make sure that their debt to income and ratio is optimized?
Absolutely. Yeah. So what we did was in this technologies, we built some AI functionality that looks at long range pattern recognition of what your spending history has been, spending history in the future that we think you're going to use. And then we run through all these iterations that someone could do with pen and paper, but it would take them a year to write out every single possibility. And we're providing concise recommendations in a one-page report that allows for a conversation to happen between the underwriters and that applicant to say that these are the steps you can take to get approved. One of the other things that we're doing is we're not just focused on individuals that have like a high debt to income ratio or an LTV or other calculations that might be high. This process is being run on every single individual that walks into financial institutions that utilize Affordit. And they're finding opportunities that they didn't even know about, right? Your credit score changes over time. So maybe you bought a car a couple of years ago and you got a credit score of 650, but now you have a credit score of 750, which will get your interest rate way down. And then you're able to actually lower the duration of that loan as well and become debt-free a lot quicker. And those are the things that we're trying to change right now in this antiquated process that you were talking about earlier.
Well, an issue that is critical on LinkedIn, we see a lot of conversation right now, is AI bias. There's a lot of fear around AI creeping into systems like this. And a recent study by MIT found that Black Americans are spending way more than their white counterparts when getting a mortgage. Is your algorithm doing anything to try and get bias out of the system?
Absolutely. So that's one of the main focuses that we really looked at from day one is how can we get that bias out of the decision making that human emotion, unfortunately, can create from time to time. And the way we're doing that is we are looking literally at just the math and the numbers that are behind the loans that are on a credit report.
It looks like we're having another issue with Kevin's audio. I'm going to see from my producer if that's just on my end. Oh, nope, we can't hear Kevin again. I'm not sure if Kevin can hear me either. It doesn't sound like it. All right, I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get the rest of Kevin's answer on today's show, but maybe we can put him backstage and bring him back. We can fix his audio. That was Kevin O'Brien. He's the CEO of Affordit talking to us, albeit a little bit shorter than we wanted to, about his model for bringing more equity to the home mortgage process. Is he coming back? Do we have him?
Oh, unfortunately, I'm not able to hear you right now.
Kevin, I'm so sorry that we had to cut our conversation short, but it sounds like we're having a little bit of a connection issue with our audio. So I'm going to have to say goodbye to you. And thank you so much for all of your comments. I'm seeing a ton of great comments from the stream. Thanking you for joining us on LinkedIn News Live. All right, that brings us to the poll that we have for you today, which is, are you willing to buy a home completely online? Is it A, yes, absolutely, B, no way, or C, it depends? And wow, a lot of you are like me and are a little hesitant, but the pandemic may change that, as we heard from Alec Hartman, the CEO of Welcome Homes. We have votes from Sopper and Stephanie, Merritt, Jessica, Justice, Kevin saying no, they would not buy a home online. And Dolores says there's so many things that can go wrong. I would want to see the neighborhood in person. And Vicky says, well, it just depends. So thank you all for joining us on LinkedIn News Live and for your votes in the stream. Tomorrow, I'll be back with you for a conversation about unemployment, global unemployment, as well as how skills are changing amid this pandemic. It's one that you're not going to want to miss. It'll be tomorrow on the LinkedIn News page at 12 Eastern. I'm Caroline Fairchild. Thank you so much for joining us.